Hello, this is Ashley Wilson doing my sports coach in assignment 1 screencast. My student ID is WIL159036000. So first of all, we're doing the criteria P1 and M1, which is 4 roles of a coach, with an example and explaining them. So first of all is a role model. This is when people look up to that one person as an example of how to behave, so they imitate them. That's why they're called being a role model. In pretty much every situation, players look to the coaches for inspiration and knowledge. This especially applies to children, because they always look up to people as they don't know what to do. A coach can influence players' development in social ways, personal ways, psychological ways, and in their health. An example of a role model could be Zinedine Zidane, as he was a very good footballer and then he became a coach manager. So he's a good example because he can now be looked at as a role model of all his good behaviours and traits. But he was also a good role model when he played football, making it a bonus for his team as he could be a role model in both situations, allowing them to grow and develop even more, considering how much and how good of a role model he is on and off the pitch. In today's society, I think it's important to be a good role model and set a good example for those you are coaching. So avoiding bad habits such as swearing or bad manners will benefit the participants by creating a good coaching environment. The players will have more respect for you if you show them how you behave and they agree with it, and they agree with what you're doing. They'll think you're a good coach, and then they will use you as a role model because they agree with how you're behaving. This would help players have better performances because they would use a good role model and learn and grow from how they are to improve themselves, showing why it's so important for a coach to be a good role model, because it goes off on all of their team and the staff, not just the players. This is behaviours like swearing, because the players don't want a role model that swears, because then they might use that on the pitch, and that can cause things like getting sent off or getting in trouble, showing why it's important a coach is a good role model and doesn't swear. So they give good stuff, not the bad stuff, to players, helping them improve their performance, but also making them more complete athletes overall, as they want the whole package, not just being good on the pitch. Next role, so a coach can be an innovator. This is where the coach leads the team to success, like with a change in their ways. They do this with personalised tactics, new encouragement, and different strategies alongside tactics. This will also help players' creativity, making them perform better, because they're inspired by the new ways of thinking and playing, allowing them to express themselves on and off the pitch. They will do this for assessing competition to see personally what they think will work against them and using their own ways, not the ways the team used to. Also through new techniques and practicing styles. Finally, the coach, if they're a good innovator, will treat every player differently and get the best as they can out of each one. That's part of being an innovator, because they use their own tactics for each one. An example could be Jurgen Klopp, because he came to Liverpool and completely changed how Liverpool play with a lot more energy to their game, which backs up my point that increases the player motivation through Jurgen Klopp being an innovator. So he tries new things, like he's made the players a lot more motivated in a new playing style because of the innovation ability of him. I think this is important in today's sport because it can bring the best out of more players as they're inspired, by which then it gives them confidence to try something new in a game, making it a benefit to their performance. Another reason I think a coach being an innovator is important because it could help all the players' motivation if they've never trained like that before, because the same stuff day in day out will become boring. But if you bring something new to the table every day, it will motivate players and make them want to play and train. Finally, if a coach is an innovator and treats every player differently as an individual with different needs, it can make them feel wanted and appreciated, making them feel better, which could allow them to work at an optimal arousal, benefiting their performance through the innovation coach helped, and that shows how important it is for a coach to be an innovator, because it has a lot of benefits to each performer in their own way. The next role of a coach I did was being a friend. So having a coach as your friend can be very good in some ways because athletes can use them to talk about problems, but on the other hand use them to talk about their successes. It is very important for a coach to keep all personal information confidential though, to keep respect between player and coach. They can be a friend but still your coach as well. There must be boundaries kept in place at all times, and this is predominantly all about trust, this sort of friendship. My example is my old football coach. He was a good friend of mine as a football coach when I was in secondary school. He's a good example because all of my team felt they could talk to him about their problems, but we also had some good laughs about when we were nervous and different things, and him helping us see our successes as we spoke to him about different sports. He also loved hearing about any sort of success we had in any sport or educational. Finally, there were always boundaries, like what we were allowed to say to him, as he was still a sort of teacher to us. I think it's important in today's sport for a coach to act as a friend, because most people are most relaxed and happy when they're playing sport, and it makes it easiest time to talk to people about problems is when you're comfortable. So I think in sport, it's very important coaches are friends, because it'd be the first place they would go to. So if they're playing sport and they have a problem, you'd be the first port of call. So it makes it very easy for them to talk to you. And then you can help them let some steam off, or help whichever way you can, appropriate. So then another reason it's important in today's society is because more people want to go to the teams. So if you get on with the coach, you'll probably go back, but if you sort of find it awkward with him, you might just get fed up and not want to participate. So another good reason the coach should be their friend is so more people want to join their team and try their hardest for the coach, because if they get on well with the coach and enjoy seeing it, the coach will also put more effort in, and it's just a better environment to work with, getting the players ready for performance and try their hardest to even improve their performance on the pitch, making it a benefit for all of the team and performer. My final role that I will be explaining for a coach is a motivator. This is where the coach has the ability to keep their players going or even push them more to benefit their performance. These people provide praise and positive feedback. These are most effective when they find positives about their performance when they can only think negative about themselves. They could be delivering the feedback with what they need to do better with a positive spin. That may be how close they are, but they are doing so well getting there. So they don't feel negative about it, but they're still getting across good feedback, showing they're a good motivating coach. My example of a motivator is my secondary school PE teacher. He was a very good motivator because he would always let me know what I needed to improve on, but never make me feel bad about myself. So this kept me wanting to play and helped my motivation. Also, if he saw something getting to me, upsetting me, affecting how I played, he would always shout encouragement and helpful stuff to make me want to try even harder and motivate myself to play the best I can, going past that boundary of stopping me. I think this is important in today's sport, that coaches can motivate, because it can change the whole game. So if a team is losing, they can offer very good motivation. They may be able to make their whole team better, then do it again, maybe change the whole game back into your favour, just from the players having better motivation to try and win the game. Another reason I think it's important that coaches are good motivators is because motivation is a huge part of every player's performance, and the more they want to play and be in the team, the harder they will work, making and playing it better faster. So if a coach is able to motivate his players, well, it could mean they can get the best out of players because they are trying their best, because the coach has boosted their motivation, which they've used to boost their performance through the coach being a good motivator, showing why it's important to every player's performance. That's why I think that's important for a coach. Now moving on to my responsibilities of a coach. So the first one I did was equal opportunities. So this is where a coach needs to be completely fair and be the same to everyone, with opportunities and treatment to benefit everyone as much as they can. This is where the coach should never discriminate by anything like skin colour or gender. Fair play for everyone, and appropriate language, like no racist remarks or something against religion. Just taking everyone into consideration, basically. A coach should encourage this in sessions by learning which way is the best for everyone, e.g. 4 new French players arrive at Newcastle Football Club, speak very little English. The coach would have to do more demonstrations rather than talk it, to show them they understand, not just speaking to who he knows will understand, thinking about everyone and adapting their session to get the best and make it equal for everyone to learn and improve. This is an important responsibility of a coach because it's a big part of the law of racism, and things are very important everyone is treated equally and fairly. Another reason it's important is because if everyone is happy how they are treated, it will bring the team closer and make everyone happy, which will lead to more effort for the coach. The consequences if a coach didn't treat everyone equal would be a lot of angry parents moaning and getting you in trouble, which may stop you being allowed to coach. but also causing splits in the team because some players will feel left out. If less of a team running, the whole team is a lot worse with no enjoyment. This would affect performance because it would tear the team apart, making no one want to play, lowering their motivation, meaning maybe just no one would turn up or just not making it very hard for any success, which would make less people want to play and just keep getting worse until there was no team left really. It could affect safety as well because it would cause a lot of anger and people feel treated unfair, which could lead to rash decisions or maybe dangerous tackles with causing fights or dangerous environments if people were saying stuff they didn't agree with, affecting everyone's involved safety because it could even get the crowd involved if they didn't agree with it, showing how big equal opportunities can affect everything and not just the individual participant. So another good reason, that's why I think equal opportunities is very important for a coach, because it can cause a lot of problems otherwise, and it makes everyone want to be part of the team, helping the team spirit. My next responsibility of a coach is knowledge of the coaching environment. This is the coach knowing what factors he has to deal with, like training facilities and location of all essentials like toilets and equipment needs. So this is like where they need to make it a smooth session so they can make extra time for learning to take place. So if they are well prepared, it leads to more and more positives about time and the session, how good the session will be. Also, how this can have a direct impact on the safety of players, e.g. coaching outdoors in the event of bad weather, a coach charging minors no cover or shelter when you hear thunder. So, a coach should always have a backup plan for everything that could go wrong with facilities. So, if the weather's bad, they need somewhere to go indoors, having enough members of staff for minors to, if they're young enough, maybe go to a toilet with them, and for everything that could go wrong, realistically basic. That's what they need to have in their mind. This is important for a coach because it can affect the session in so many ways, like how safe and how good the session is, because being more ready can lead to more attention on the important thing like the athletes and them paying attention to you. Another reason it's important is it will cause the coach less problems with facilities and having the right equipment to perform and run the session the best they can, just all making it better for his team and athletes really. The consequences of not doing this would be slower and less constructive with more problems in every way, like health and safety or booking the facility, or even having the right amount of equipment. This affects performance by giving the athletes more and better training, by making them go the extra way. Safety can also be affected because it means the more prepared and well structured lessons are, it means less improvisations will be needed, meaning health and safety will be prepared for, making it more safe because they know where and when they're doing it, showing the risk assessment is more up to date because they haven't had to change as much, so less precautions after the changes will have to happen, showing how important the knowledge of the coaching environment is to the coach and the safety of all his players. The next responsibility of a coach in doing is professional behaviour. This is similar to a role model. It's how a coach presents himself to a group, how they act, type of communication, willingness to learn, desire to improve players, not swearing in appropriate language. The coach's conduct and their behaviour determines current and future experience of athletes, like when they reward honesty and the right attitudes for the right things, showing the professional behaviour of the whole team, not just himself. This is important because it will completely affect how the athletes then behave, hopefully show the desire to win, and also things like fair play, showing they have learnt the good and professional behaviour of their coach, making them better and more respectful athletes, improving the whole of today's game really. The consequences of not prompting this would be like the athletes have never seen or been taught how to behave, so getting rid of their professionalism on the pitch, which could then mean the consequences like getting sent off or no clubs wanting you because they wouldn't want the hassle that comes with you for the poor attitude you give. It could also just show you don't know the basics of the sport with how to behave and different things like that. This affects performance because they are more likely to get in trouble and get sent off and ruin the game completely, rather than just being the better people. Because they just don't know how to behave in a sporting environment if their coach has never showed them that professional behaviour. It also affects safety because they don't know how things like respect work, so they have to try and win at any cost maybe, and then that could cause a dangerous tackle that could lead to an injury for themselves or the opposition. This shows how important responsibility of it is for a coach's professional behaviour, to set an example for his athletes and make himself look better to everyone, showing they can play the sport but also be very fair. My next responsibility of coach is the health and safety. So all coaches have a duty of care to themselves and performers. All sports have risks that can harm people and cause injuries. These are either extrinsic risks or intrinsic risks. So extrinsic is anything out of the body that could cause the body harm. Intrinsic is anything inside the body that could be causing you an issue. So this is why coaches carry out risk assessments throughout and before, check for things like injuries, sharp-edged surfaces, pre-existing medical conditions, etc. An example of a coach I've witnessed doing this could be Alex Leach, when he checks a sports hall before he started basketball in college. Health and safety within the session is also very important. That's why coaches do risk assessments throughout, so they can adapt the session to make it as safe as possible for everyone, taking everyone's needs into perspective. For example, a coach leading a shooting drill, they will need to ensure the safety of the players within the session, with things like reassessing if it rains and the floor becomes slippy. This is an important responsibility for a coach because any injury or harm that happens to someone during your session falls on you, meaning you could get in trouble or even lose your job due to this responsibility. Another reason it's important is because it lowers the risk of injury, keeping everyone in better shape and better team selection for you, because you have made the safer environment to work in. The consequences of a coach not doing this could be very serious injuries or something bad happening to them, which could lead to a coach losing a job, or because health and safety people will be all over it in this day and age. This affects performance because health and safety there wouldn't be allowed to be any sport if there wasn't a high level of it now. So they need to have that realistic, safe environment and training to make it competitive as well. This obviously has a major effect on health and safety because this is all about making sure safety is considered, making it legal standards because it doesn't affect on safety. Could be anything up to death if the standards are really low of health and safety. This shows how important health and safety is to a responsibility of a coach because it can affect just their job and overall, because it could also cause harm to people or lose them their jobs. The injury list can go on if the health and safety isn't taken into perspective correctly. So now I'm moving on to the skills of a coach. So my first skill of a coach is time management. So the importance of keeping session times affects the performance massively because it keeps everyone wanting to do it and involved. This is good, but it's good for setting short-term and long-term goals because it gets rid of even lower chance of boredom because they know what they got to work towards now and by the end of the session. So these goals make something to aim for basically, and then they can enjoy and make it harder to compete against each other, making more improvements. An example could be a football camp because he had all the timings right up on the board, so we knew exactly what and when we were doing it, making us try harder for each little bit because we knew it was going to end soon, giving us that motivation. This is important and will affect performance by increasing their motivation and how hard they want to try because of the skill of the coach. Because good time management will increase enjoyment and how much they get done, allowing them to enjoy even more and try harder, helping to increase their performance. Coaches need the skill because it makes everyone of their sessions more effective and gives the participants the most time and best chance to improve themselves. While this skill of timekeeping will also increase their motivation, it will also just increase their performance because they will see it's high intensity, not just a mess about. This shows this skill of a coach is important because it makes the athletes have more time to get better, allowing them to be as good as they can when it comes to competition, improving themselves throughout, using that good time management to make them the best they can. The next skill of a coach I got is organisation. A coach can organise equipment, players, staff, fixtures and other skills on. An example for a training passing session could be getting the right equipment as cones, but also making sure all the things are booked like the facilities. But finally, they'd also need to make sure they'd have a big enough turnout of players to the drill to make the drill work. They could also organise how many staff are there and how many were at the fixtures if there was fixtures the same day. So the coach basically organises everything to do with the team and make it how they want it to get the best mix of it all to suit them and their team's performance. To be a good organiser, they need to plan what they are doing so they can work out what they need to do beforehand rather than on the day. To be a good organiser, they need to know as much as they can before it happens to give themselves as much time as they can to be able to deal with problems on the day with things like backup plans because they're already organised. An example of a coach of this skill is my old PE teacher, because they always had something ready when we got there, allowing us to get on straight away because of their good organisational skills. This affects performance and safety because it means less standing around if everyone is organising. Like if they already have the footballs out, it gives us the opportunity to start playing as soon as we get there. This would impact performance because they could get a better warm-up in and we wouldn't get cold standing around waiting, making them feel better and happier to be there. It would also help safety because if it's well organised, they would know what's going to happen if someone gets hurt, which means they could get them treated quicker, which could even lead to a quicker recovery time, helping everyone there. This skill is needed because it makes the session look a lot more professional, makes the coach better and look better when all organised because they can have more confidence about running the session rather than something never left the last minute to worry about, so it helps them overall. This shows this skill is important for the coach to focus on the session and be well organised beforehand to make the session the best they can because it was organised before and they only have to worry about the important stuff on the day, not what they forgot to do the other day. The final skill of a coach I'm doing is communication. There are many types of communication in coaching and all very important, especially to different groups of people. So verbal is the main use of communication and is most effective for basically everyone really, but obviously there are certain groups that it's not as good. So normally with other ones alongside, like normally I use verbal skills with demonstrations or other ways of getting it across. But some people also need non-verbal, and like just letting them get on with it and showing them as they do it non-verbal communication with like visual learners. As an example, could be a private school, they have a class of all deaf people where they use sign language and demonstrations to teach them because verbal communications wouldn't be effective communicating for these participants because they obviously can't use the verbal one. It is also important to use a range of communication methods with all types of learners to keep them interested. This will also help them to learn more and more, even though they will have one stronger communication like most people with verbal. They like mixing it up and it shows body in different ways how to do stuff, making their brain think more and more about it, helping them learn it over and over again. This is why using a variation of communication method on every learner is important because it engages different parts of the brain and keeps you more and more interested, allowing them to be more motivated to work harder and finally get the best they can be at that thing because it keeps going over their brain in different ways, visually or verbally, depending how they've done it. Next, I'm moving on to the techniques of a coach. So there are 3 of these, and my first one is an effective demonstration. So demonstrations are where the coach does it himself or using someone else that can do it right to first hand show what they have to do it. They use demonstrations to show participants and give them a better understanding of what they have to do if they are struggling to understand. This helps different learning styles through showing them a visual picture to help anyone and everyone process it. And if they get it, if they already have it, they can use the demonstration to pick out the small bits they need to improve, like where the hands are going to gym landing or different things like that. Just little bits if they already have the main bit of it. They can break it down into each process watching a demonstration. So an example could be in demonstrating the overhead clear in badminton. The participants can clearly see each stage of the process. The approach, the contact and the follow through can be all broken up and demonstrated visually and verbally, so a clear picture is created for the correct technique. An example of a coach that does this is my primary school cricket teacher, because he did a demonstration for everything we could do, because we really struggled with cricket when we first did it. So this really benefited us because it would teach us all the basics, but then him doing it over and over again would help us remember, helping us improve quite quickly, to be honest. Demonstration is such an effective way to teach a skill technique because it gives them a real life picture and they see what it's supposed to look like as they can try and copy it. This is also important because it gives the aspect of trying to remember it, allowing them to use demonstration to their full advantage, making a demonstration a very good and effective way for people to learn the skills through. This can impact performance by allowing them to use the advantage to improve themselves. that bit more, completely learn a new skill, showing all the ways that benefit performance. If it's a good demonstration, it will help them because it will either improve the little bits, or it will end up going completely wrong if they haven't watched the demonstration. This will help everyone, but the main thing is the concentration on these demos. For it to be an effective demonstration, they would have to be paying full attention, because if not, it's pointless, because then they will start to guess what they had to do because they weren't watching, making the demonstration pointless, even if they saw little bits, because they will fill in the other bits wrong. So demonstration is a very good technique of a coach, but it's obviously making sure you have control of your group and everyone watches and concentrates as you do it to help them all learn the best they can, but it's very good if done right. The next technique of a coach I'm doing is performance profiling. So this is a subjective method of performance analysis that relies on self-reflection from the athlete alongside a coach's assessment of their ability. There are three major purposes of this. The first one is to aid in identifying intervention. The next one is maximise the athlete's motivation. And finally is to monitor changes over time. So the first step of this is always to identify a set of characteristics and/or attributes that are going to be assessed. Then the athlete decides how important each of these elements are. Then a comparison of the athlete's perception of his abilities compared with the coach's perception of the player's ability. So using it against each other, basically. This can have a massive effect on performance, because first of all they can get to write down their scores, maybe showing themselves where they need improvement, or it can improve their motivation if they do agree they're better at something to themselves. Another impact of performance is that it can be used just the coaches' scores to help them learn their next goals to set to impress the coaches, or even learn where the coach thinks they're good, helping the motivation. And the final impact on performance is they can use both sets of data to compare them, and this could be to increase motivation by the coaches put you higher than what you thought, or it could be vice versa. It could help you set goals. So yeah, performance profiling is also a very good technique of a coach as long as it's done right, and can be used in very different ways to show how much effect it can have on performance and improvement through goal setting or just reviewing very well. My final technique of a coach is observation analysis. So this involves watching and reviewing an athlete's sporting performance, and can be done in two ways. One is direct observation and the other is indirect observation. Direct observation can be performed by a coach at the sideline, whereas indirect observation may involve the use of digital film and equipment. When conducting this analysis, the data that's collected will either be subjective or objective. Subjective is all about opinions and words. Objective is stats like the amount of passes completed or amount of shots on target, etc., etc. This can have a massive impact on performance as well, because more than one person can analyse you in this way, giving you a bigger range of feedback, giving you the most chance of more stuff to improve on and better yourself. Another reason it's important is it can be used against goals to see progress, so not just what to improve on, but how much you've already improved already. This is good because if it's indirect observation analysis, it can be watched back with the players, showing them as well where they need to improve on and talk them through why that's bad and why it needs improving. This shows how important it is to performer, because it gives a lot of chance for different types of feedback and progress towards goals, and helps them set new goals to overall improve their performance. Showing finally why this is also another very good technique of a coach. So D2, evaluating the three techniques used by coaches. So the first one I did was the effective demonstration. So the positives of this is they get to watch someone else, so if they're visual learners, it can help them very much because it gives them confidence to see someone else can do it, which makes themselves want to do it. Another positive of effective demonstration is that if you see not just your coach doing it, but someone in your class, they can give you tips. Like if it's the coach shows you and you're in an under 10 session, maybe another under 10 explaining it to them could help them more. So if someone their own age is demonstrating it, it can give them a lot more detail about how to do it, and specifically helping not just improve but getting the point across in a different manner. So the more people that tell you can help. The only problem is there are a few negatives to effective demonstration. For example, if someone in the class can't do it, and it's only the coach that can, they could all just believe it's because he's older, because he's done the sport for longer, just decreasing motivation to do it because no one in the class can do it. Another negative of demonstrations is the players can think that the player demonstrating is the coach's favourite because they've made them do it, which makes them feel bad as well. So it's really, there are different things that make it negative and positive, but I would still say they're positive. You just got to take a few little things into consideration, how it can make players feel, or how a demonstration can look easy but make the players feel bad because they just can't do it, which is a shame, but it does happen in sport. My next technique used by coaches was performance profiling. So an advantage of this is that both you and the coach get to have a look at it, which is good because then you get to see what they think is good and what you think is good. And you can obviously talk about it and they can explain why you're not good at it and you can explain why you are and come into a good agreement about it. Another positive is obviously you could do this over one session or you could do it over a whole season. So this allows you to break your performance down into a lot smaller pieces. Because if you did it in just one session, you could do very well at one thing, very bad at another. But over a whole season, you could know you're very good at one thing. So you can use multiple performance profiles to make you better and better and to watch your goals as you go on, helping you very much improve, which I think is very good. A negative of performance profiling is that if you think you're very good at something and a coach says you're not, that can really hit your motivation and confidence. So as much as it's good to get two people's view, it can also damage your confidence very much and make you think twice about how you see yourself. And obviously another negative is these can be biased. If the coach doesn't like you, they could rate you very badly on purpose, just being not very nice really, which then makes this a whole different, just ruins it. Performance profiling has to be done well and professionally to work. So there are positives to it, but it needs to be conducted well and safely to make it work. But coaches should be able to do that, but it depends if they're in a professional manner or they're not being very good. My final technique was observational analysis. So the positive to this is obviously if it's indirect, you can watch it back with as many people as you want and get like a sort of everyone to explain why it's good or why it's bad, learning what's more popular of an answer. So you can sort of conduct your own test with that. Obviously the observational analysis positive for direct feedback would be that someone's there watching you. So they're getting a first-hand experience, whereas if it's indirect, they may not have been able to tell the atmosphere of the game or something get into you. So they could say that was bad, but you could then, if you were there, you would have understood why. So that's good that you get the full picture if you're there rather than the recording, because you might not get everything like the atmosphere or a nasty word being shouted at you. Negatives to observational analysis, obviously this can also be biased if it's direct because you can't watch it back over. So if it's someone analysing two teams, they can be very all about one team, making it not very fair, but you'd never know that because you can't compare. And then finally, another negative for this coach's technique could be that with the indirect filming equipment, the filming equipment could be unreliable, making that very annoying because it could miss parts of your game or skip parts or just stuff like that. So for this observational analysis, there are goods and bads to it, but when you do the indirect, it needs to be good equipment to make sure everything's captured and it doesn't affect you and make you look worse than what you are, because that would just be pointless, making it a bad evaluating technique. But it is a good one, like all three I did. These all have their little things to think. Thank you.